So as you can tell by the title of this video, it's going to be about what if Tony Stewart never created Stewart Haas Racing. I don't think anyone has done this, and someone's probably going to do this after this video, and maybe by the time this video is up, someone's already done this, but I'm going to be taking a look at what I think would happen if Tony Stewart never started Stewart Haas Racing. So to begin this video, I'm going to be looking at each and every single driver that's driven for Tony Stewart and his team, and just taking a look at how their careers would just kind of end up individually, including Tony Stewart. And there is going to be a lot of changes. This is probably going to be a long video, but let's get into it. So the first thing you might be asking, besides why there's a 5 car on your screen right now, is why there's a 5 car on your screen right now. And that's because Tony Stewart goes to Rick Hendrick at the end of 2008. Obviously, he stated that he was not comfortable with Joe Gibbs Racing, and so he leaves their organization and goes to Hendrick Motorsports. Now, it's not out of left field that he went to Hendrick, as he had an alliance with Hendrick up until he switched to Ford, but I think that he would have strengthened the team, and the team would have kept him up until his retirement. And this is albeit he still retired like normal at the end of 2016. So where does Kane go? Well, at the end of 2011, after his whole Red Bull stint, he'll go over to Circle Sport to drive their number 33 car in 2012 and 2013. In 2013, he will share the car with Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon pilots half the schedule, and he does the other half. In 2014, he'll go over to drive the number 7 car for Junior Motorsport. So Regan Smith is just kind of off being Regan Smith and substituting for every other driver in the field if they're injured. And Kane pilots the number 7 car up until the end of 2016. Now, Justin Allgaier stays with H. Scott in 2016, sharing the ride with Michael Annett in the 46 car. And then after the season, Kane goes to the 5 and does his old deal, and Allgaier goes to the 7. Now, looking at the field, which is pretty much already stout at this point in time, there isn't really any other driver that Team Penske has. So in 2009, Ryan Newman stays with Team Penske for what he thinks is going to be another year, but he breaks out and does really well, so he signs a 3-year extension, 2 years with a 1-year option. He takes the 1-year option and leaves Team Penske at the end of 2012. So after his 2012 stint, Newman doesn't have a ride, and he goes over to Gene Haas. And yes, he does. At this point, Gene Haas is a back marketer, and everyone is just saying to him, go back to Formula One. He plans to shut down the team at the end of 2013, but Newman gets 1 win with the team at Talladega and elevates the team and finishes 19th in the points and does really well before leaving to go to Richard Childress Racing. Though eventually the team will fall out at the end of 2015 and leave NASCAR entirely. Now, she who must not be named doesn't have a ride for 2013 because obviously Stewart Haas isn't a thing, but she has funding from GoDaddy, and so she goes to Jack Roush and looks for an opportunity there, doesn't get one, and then goes to Joe Gibbs, and they open up a 4th car, which is a 19 car sponsored by GoDaddy. Now, please don't imagine that. That's probably a cursed image. Anyways, now, obviously, Cousin Carl goes to the 19 in 2015, and so she who must not be named needs a ride, and so she goes back to Jack Roush and takes an opportunity there, and she has funding, so they effectively bring the 10 car, and she is running the 10 Ford for Jack Roush. And then, obviously, she does her whole deal and retires at the end of 2017. Jack folds the 10 car, and it's never run again. Now, Kurt Busch was a little hard to judge because his career could arguably be defined by Gene Haas and Tony Stewart. But I say this. In 2014, he signs a 1-year extension with Furniture Racing. They get a win, and they do solid. Truex is still running on Michael Waltrip Racing, suffering unsponsored for a large majority of the season. He leaves, joins Furniture Row in 2015, and they buy the charter from Gene Haas when he closed at the end of 2015. Kurt Busch goes to Levine Family Racing in 2015 and builds that organization up from the grave and pretty much does that whole deal. Then in 2016, he goes back to Furniture Row and drives the 87 car, elevates that team high up with sponsorship from Monster Energy, and then obviously leaves the team at the end of 2018. Happy? Not happy? Yeah, it's pretty hard to say where he would go. Now this one is probably the most depressing one out of all of these, as Kevin Harvick has had a career resurgence with Stewart Haas Racing. But Michael Waltrip Racing is where he finds his 2014 home. After looking for rides and not really going anywhere, he leaves Childress and he goes to Michael Waltrip Racing. In 2020, he's driving the 55 car, he's synonymous with that car, he's elevated Michael Waltrip Racing, and it's still running to this very day. Harvick is not a championship perennial like he is right now, but he's an okay round of 12, round of 16-ish driver with solid sponsorship from Aaron's driving the 55 Toyota. And like I said, don't imagine that. It's probably a very cursed image like I've said in this video. Now Eric Amarola would drive the 16 car, and even though it's not on the screen, he would drive the 16 car in 2018. That's where Eric Amarola would end up. Ryan Newman would pilot the 6 car beginning in 2019. And so Amarola to this day is a solid driver for Jack Roush in the 16 Smithfield Ford Mustang. Clint Bowyer is probably one of the saddest ones to make, at least in this fantasy. And his begins after his H. Scott stint at the end of 2016. He leaves Michael Waltrip Racing to go to H. Scott because he doesn't feel comfortable with MWR, even though they're still a strong team, like I mentioned, with Kevin Harvick. But Clint Bowyer's sponsorship leads him with a good ride with Toyota, back with Toyota actually, because he drove for them in 2015, to drive the 77 car for Furniture Row Racing. Now, Eric Jones pilots the 76 car sponsored by SiriusXM. Bowyer still stays with the team, and then after 2018, Furniture Row Racing closes down. Bowyer goes over to Gaunt Brothers Racing and elevates that team from a top 40, top 35 team to a top 30 to top 25 team on a week-to-week basis. Daniel Suarez has pretty much been relegated to the Xfinity Series back marketer garage, as he has proven that he's not cup ready. He drives for teams like Mike Harmon Racing and such, and doesn't really do much there. This for Suarez began in 2019, so the whole Stewart Haas stint never really happened. And finally on this list of drivers that got screwed because Stewart Haas Racing decided not to exist is Cole Custer. Cole is with Junior Motorsports to this day, driving the number 5 car. Michael Annett doesn't exist. He's pretty much gone out of the sport because Pilot shoved him out. And so Custer's still looking for a ride, but he's a solid driver in the Xfinity Series and has a championship under his belt. So that'll do it for this video. Let me know if you guys enjoyed. Subscribe and like if you really did. Thank God Tony Stewart and Gene Haas created their team, because a lot of things would have been different. This video was fairly difficult to make, just kind of predicting what would happen. But thanks to some drivers having some solidified sponsorship, it dictated where a lot of the decisions came from. So anyways guys, till next time, this has been the news. I'll see ya.